You know that specific kind of silence that happens right before a car crash. That split second where your brain registers the skid, the loss of control, but the metal hasn't actually crunched yet? That was exactly how Elena Sterling felt every single morning when she opened her eyes in her Pacific Heights penthouse. From the outside, Elena was the golden girl of San Francisco biotech, Stanford PhD, 34 years old, featured on every under 40 list that mattered, the CEO of Ethereal Life Sciences, a company her father built from a garage experiment into a billion-dollar empire. But the truth was that Ethereal was rotting from the inside out, burning through cash at a rate that made Elena physically nauseous if she looked at a spreadsheet for too long. We're talking 11 weeks of payroll left, max, and after that, the lights go out, the science stops, and the Sterling legacy becomes a cautionary tale about spoiled heiresses who couldn't keep the ship afloat. It was a Tuesday in November, one of those crisp, blindingly bright Bay Area mornings that make you feel guilty for being miserable, and Elena was standing in the lobby of the Fairmont Hotel, wearing a cream-colored Alexander McQueen suit that cost more than most people's cars, trying to close a deal with two French venture capitalists who looked like they'd rather be literally anywhere else. She was laughing at a joke she didn't understand, tilting her head just so, projecting this aura of effortless success, while inside, her stomach was doing backflips because she absolutely knew, that if she didn't secure this Series C funding today, she was going to have to lay off 300 people by Christmas. And that's when he walked in. Now, the Fairmont lobby is a place that smells like old money, lilies, and furniture polish. It's all marble columns and velvet crushed cushions, a place where people speak in hushed tones about asset allocation. The man who walked through the revolving doors did not fit the aesthetic. He was huge, easily 6'4", with shoulders that looked like they were built for carrying lumber, not laptops. He was wearing a faded, navy blue Carhartt work jacket with a grease stain on the left pocket, a pair of jeans that had been washed so many times they were practically white at the knees, and heavy, mud-caked work boots that made a dull, heavy thud on the pristine marble floor. Elena saw him out of the corner of her eye, and her immediate reaction wasn't curiosity, it was irritation, just a spike of pure, unadulterated annoyance because she was in the middle of a delicate performance, trying to convince these skeptical Frenchmen that Ethereal was the height of sophistication, and here comes this disruption, this walking construction site, bumbling into her frame. She watched as he looked around, clutching a battered leather notebook, looking a little lost, and then he started walking toward them. "Excuse me," Elena said, cutting off one of the investors mid-sentence, her voice dropping into that icy, polite register that is actually ruder than screaming. She turned fully toward the man, blocking his path to the seating area. "The service entrance is on the north side of the building, deliveries don't come through the main lobby." The man stopped, blinking. He had a face that looked like a roadmap of hard years, deep lines around his eyes, a scruffy gray beard, but his eyes were sharp, startlingly blue and calm. "I'm not a delivery driver," he said, his voice gravelly, like tires on a gravel road. "I'm looking for Elena Sterling, we have a 9 o'clock. Elena let out a short, incredulous laugh, the kind that isn't funny at all. "I'm Elena Sterling," she said, looking him up and down, letting her gaze linger on the mud on his boots, "and I certainly don't have a 9 o'clock with a contractor. We're not renovating the offices, and even if we were, I don't handle maintenance requests personally." The French investors were watching this with amused expressions, clearly enjoying the show, and that just made Elena double down. She felt like she had to perform strength, had to show she was in control of her environment. "My name is Silas," the man said, shifting his weight. He didn't look angry, which somehow made it worse, he just looked patient, like a parent dealing with a toddler having a tantrum. "Silas Thorne, my assistant confirmed with your office last week, we're supposed to discuss the Series C round." Silas Thorne. Elena repeated the name like it left a bad taste in her mouth. "I've never heard of you, and I know every serious capital firm in the valley." "Look, Mr. Thorne, was it? This is a private meeting for accredited investors, high-net-worth individuals who understand the complexities of biotechnology, not for, well, whatever this is." She gestured vaguely at his entire existence. "You've clearly been scammed by someone selling fake leads, or maybe you're just confused, but you need to leave before you embarrass yourself further." "I drove 4 hours to get here," Silas said quietly, clutching his notebook a little tighter. If you'd just let me show you my... I don't want to see your flyers, Elena snapped, her patience snapping like a dry twig, the stress of the impending bankruptcy boiling over and finding a target in this man who represented everything she was afraid of: messiness, poverty, lack of polish. She turned toward the security desk where Jerome, the head of lobby security, was watching nervously. Jerome. Can we get some assistance over here, please? Jerome walked over, looking pained. He knew Elena, he knew her father, and he looked at the big man in the work boots with an apologetic grimace. Ms. Sterling, is there a problem? Yes, there is, Elena said, her voice raising just enough to draw the attention of the entire room. This man is soliciting, he's disrupting a private business meeting, and he's refusing to leave. Please escort him out before I have to call the police for trespassing. Silas looked at Elena, really looked at her, for a long, uncomfortable 5 seconds. He didn't puff up his chest, he didn't shout, he just stared at her with this profound, heavy disappointment that made Elena's skin prickle. You didn't even check, he said softly. You just looked at the boots and decided what I was worth. I decided you don't belong here, Elena hissed, leaning in close so only he could hear, the smell of her expensive Chanel perfume mixing with the scent of sawdust coming off him. And I was right. Go back to the job site. Silas nodded, slowly. All right, he said. I'll go. He turned to Jerome. No need to grab me, son, I know the way out. He turned and walked away, his heavy boots echoing on the marble, thud, 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 a rhythm of finality that Elena ignored as she smoothed her skirt, forced a brilliant, fake smile back onto her face, and turned to the French investors. So sorry about that, she said, waving a hand dismissively. You know how it is, San Francisco has a real problem with the unhoused population these days, you have to be firm or they'll walk all over you. The French investors exchanged a look that Elena interpreted as impressed, but was actually something much closer to disgust, and they declined the deal 20 minutes later, citing cultural incompatibility, but Elena told herself it didn't matter, she had saved face, she had protected her territory. She didn't know it yet, but she had just signed her own death warrant. The ride back to the Etheria offices was quiet. Elena sat in the back of her Uber Black, checking her email, feeling that familiar knot of anxiety tightening in her chest again because the French money was gone, which meant she was down to the bottom of the list, the Hail Mary options. She walked into the office, glass walls, open concept, young geniuses in hoodies typing furiously, and marched straight to her corner office overlooking the bay. Marcus, she yelled for her CFO without even sitting down. Get in here, the French passed, we need to look at the secondary list. Marcus came in looking like he hadn't slept in a week, his tie loosened, holding a tablet with trembling hands. Elena, he said, his voice shaky. We have a problem. I know we have a problem, Marcus, we have no money, she sat down, rubbing her temples. That's why I need you to give me the next name. No, Elena, you don't understand, Marcus placed the tablet on her desk, sliding it across the polished wood. The security logs. Jerome at the Fairmont called me, he said you kicked someone out this morning. So what? Some grifter in work boots trying to crash a meeting, I handled it. Elena, Marcus whispered, and the look on his face was pure terror. That wasn't a grifter. Did you Google the name Silas Thorne? Why would I Google a construction worker? He's not a construction worker. Marcus yelled, finally losing his cool. He's the Rust Belt Oracle. He's the guy who founded Thorne Steel and Logistics. He sold his logistics AI to Amazon for $4 billion last year. He specializes in distressed biotech assets because his wife died of a rare blood disease and he wants to fund the cure. He wears the work clothes because he still works shifts at his family's mill on weekends to stay humble. He was our only shot, Elena. He was the only one with pockets deep enough to save us. Elena stared at the tablet. The screen showed a Wired magazine cover. It was him. Silas Thorne. Same beard, same intense blue eyes, wearing a black t-shirt. The headline read, "The quietest billionaire in America wants to fix biotech." The room started to spin. The sound of the blood rushing in her ears was like a jet engine. "No," she whispered, her hand flying to her mouth. "No, that's impossible." He looked dirty. He had mud on his boots. He came from a job site. Marcus was pacing now, pulling at his hair. "He tests people, Elena. It's legendary. He shows up looking like a blue-collar worker to see if the CEOs are arrogant or if they're real leaders. And you, oh my God, you called security on him?" Elena felt the bile rise in her throat. She remembered the look in his eyes. "You just looked at the boots and decided what I was worth." She hadn't just rejected an investor, she had walked into a trap of her own making, a trap baited with her own prejudice and insecurity. "Get him on the phone," Elena barked, grabbing her own cell, her fingers slipping on the screen because her palms were sweating so much. "Call his office. Apologize. Tell him I was stressed, tell him I was sick, tell him anything." "I tried." Marcus yelled back. "I called his assistant 10 minutes ago. She said Mr. Thorne has seen enough of Etheria's culture to make an informed decision. They pulled the term sheet, Elena. It's gone. We're insolvent in 10 weeks. Elena sank back into her leather chair, the most expensive chair money could buy, and she felt smaller than she had ever felt in her life. She looked out the window at the Golden Gate Bridge, looking for a lifeline, but all she saw was her own reflection in the glass, a woman in a perfect suit who was completely, utterly hollow. But Elena Sterling was a lot of things, arrogant, blind, abrasive, but she wasn't a quitter. She couldn't be. Not with her father's name on the building. She took a deep breath, swallowing the panic, and stood up. "Where is he?" she asked, her voice deadly quiet. "What?" Marcus blinked. "Silas Thorne. Where is he right now? If he flew in, he has to be somewhere. His flight log, his private jet is scheduled to leave San Francisco Airport at 6 p.m. for Pittsburgh." Marcus checked his watch. "It's 2 p.m. now. Book me a seat," Elena said, grabbing her purse. "On his jet?" "No, you idiot, on the next commercial flight to Pittsburgh. I'm not going to catch him at the airport, he won't talk to me there. I'm going to his turf. I'm going to the one place he can't call security on me." "Elena, you can't just show up at a steel mill in a Chanel suit," Marcus warned. "Watch me," she said, and for the first time all day, her confidence wasn't a performance. It was desperation fueled by the terrifying realization that she had to strip herself bare to survive. The flight to Pittsburgh was a 6-hour nightmare in economy class because Elena's corporate card had finally been flagged for unusual activity, which was bank speak for "you're broke." She sat in the middle seat between a toddler who screamed for the first 3 hours and a man eating a tuna sandwich that smelled like low tide, and honestly, it was exactly what she deserved. She spent the entire flight staring at the seat back in front of her, replaying that moment in the lobby over and over again. The way she had curled her lip. The way she had dismissed a human being as trash, just because he didn't reflect her own shiny, hollow world back at her. It wasn't just a business mistake, it was a moral failing, and for the first time in years, Elena couldn't hide behind her PhD or her stock options. She was just a mean woman in a fancy suit who had underestimated the wrong man. She landed in Pittsburgh at midnight. It was raining, not the polite, misty rain of San Francisco, but a cold, hard, industrial rain that soaked you to the bone in seconds. She didn't have an umbrella. She rented the cheapest car available, a compact sedan that smelled like stale cigarettes, and drove to the address Marcus had texted her. It wasn't an office building. It wasn't a penthouse. It was the Thorne Ironworks and Logistics Hub, a massive, sprawling complex of rusted metal, chain-link fences, and smokestacks on the outskirts of the city, right by the river. She pulled up to the main gate at 1 a.m. It was locked. A security guard, a real one, this time, looking tough and tired, stepped out of the booth. "Help you?" he grunted, looking at the soaking wet woman in the ruined designer suit. "I need to see Silas Thorne," Elena said, shivering violently. Her hair was plastered to her face, her mascara was running, and her shoes were ruined in the mud. The guard laughed. "Mr. Thorne is in there, yeah. He's working the night shift on the smelter floor. He does it once a month to clear his head. But he gave strict orders. No visitors. Especially not." He squinted at his clipboard, "anyone named Sterling." "I'm not leaving," Elena said, her teeth chattering. "I'll wait here." "Suit yourself, lady. It's 40 degrees out here." And so she waited. She sat in her rental car, watching the steam rise from the factory vents, watching the sparks fly in the distance where the night crew was welding. She didn't turn on the heat because she was worried about running out of gas. She sat there for 6 hours. She watched the sun come up over the gray, gritty river. She watched the shift change. She watched the world wake up, a world of hard work and grit that she had spent her entire life flying over in first class. At 7 a.m., the main gates opened, and a stream of workers came out, tired, dirty, carrying lunch pails. And there, walking in the middle of them, was Silas. He looked even worse than he had in the hotel lobby. His face was smeared with soot, his knuckles were taped up, and he looked exhausted. But he was laughing with a guy next to him, clapping him on the back. Elena got out of the car. Her legs were stiff, her body ached, and she knew she looked like a train wreck. She walked up to the gate. Silas saw her. He stopped laughing. He said something to the guy next to him, who nodded and walked away, and then Silas walked over to the fence. He didn't open the gate. He just stood on the other side, gripping the chain links with his massive hands. "You're persistent," he said, his voice flat. "I'm desperate," Elena replied, her voice hoarse. "And I'm sorry." "You're sorry you got caught," Silas said, shaking his head. "You're sorry I have money. If I was just a contractor, you wouldn't be standing in the rain in Pittsburgh. You'd be laughing about me over brunch." "You're right," Elena said. The admission felt like vomiting. It was violent and painful. "You're absolutely right. If you were poor, I wouldn't be here. And that makes me a person I don't want to be anymore." Silas looked at her, searching for the lie. "Go home, Miss Sterling. My money isn't for people who treat dignity like a luxury item. It's not about the money anymore." Elena shouted, and she meant it. "Okay, it is about the money because 300 people are going to lose their health insurance in a month if you don't help, and that is on me. That is my failure. But I'm standing here because I need you to know that I see you. I see I was wrong. I was scared. I'm terrified every day that people will find out I'm just a fraud riding my father's coattails, so I attack anyone who doesn't look the part to make myself feel real. It's pathetic. I know it's pathetic." She slumped against the fence, sliding down until she was sitting in the mud. Just don't let the company die because I'm a bitch. Buy me out. Fire me. I don't care. Just save the work. The science is real, Silas. The science is good. Don't kill the cure because you hate the doctor." Silence. Long, heavy silence, broken only by the distant clanging of metal. Elena put her head in her hands, defeated. She heard the rattle of a chain, the screech of a heavy gate sliding open. She looked up. Silas was standing over her, blocking out the sun. He reached down, a hand the size of a shovel, scarred and stained with grease. "Get up," he said. Elena took his hand. He pulled her up effortlessly. He didn't smile. He didn't look kind. He looked like a businessman about to make a very hard transaction. "Come inside," he said. "We're not doing this in the mud." He led her into the complex, not to an office, but to a small break room that smelled like old coffee and industrial cleaner. He poured 2 cups of black coffee into styrofoam cups and sat down at a wobbly plastic table. He gestured for her to sit. "Here's the thing, Elena," Silas said, leaning forward, his blue eyes boring into hers. "I don't care about your apology. Apologies are cheap. Change is expensive. You want my money? You want the Series C?" "Yes," Elena whispered. "Okay. I'll fund it. Fully. $50 million. Enough to get you through the FDA trials." Elena felt a sob catch in her throat. "Thank you, Shut up. I'm not finished." Silas pulled a folded, greasy piece of paper out of his pocket and smoothed it onto the table. "These are my terms. They are non-negotiable. If you say no to a single one, I walk, and Etheria dies." Elena looked at the paper. It wasn't a legal document. It was a handwritten list. 1. Elena Sterling resigns as CEO immediately. 2. The board of directors will be dissolved and replaced with a diverse board of my choosing. 3. Elena Sterling will remain at the company, but not in the C-suite. She will take the position of head of community outreach. 4. For the first 6 months, Elena Sterling will work out of a satellite office. Not the penthouse. The basement. 5. Elena Sterling will personally attend every single bias training seminar she deemed unnecessary for her staff last year. "You want to demote me?" Elena asked, staring at the list. "You want to humiliate me?" "I want to ground you," Silas said, taking a sip of his coffee. "You've spent your whole life in a tower, looking down. You can't lead people you don't understand. You can't heal people you don't respect. Head of outreach means you deal with the patients. The people who need your drug. The people who can't afford it. You're going to talk to them. You're going to listen to them. And you're going to do it from a basement office with no view." He leaned back. "That's the deal. You keep your equity, but you lose your power. You save the company, but you lose your crown. Take it or leave it." Elena looked at the list. It was a career death sentence. The press would have a field day. Sterling ousted. Heiress demoted. It would be humiliating. It would destroy the image she had spent a decade building. She looked at Silas. He wasn't enjoying this. He wasn't gloating. He was offering her a lifeline, not for her reputation, but for her soul. "I'll take it," Elena said. "Good," Silas stood up. "Go wash your face, kid. You look like hell. We have a press conference to schedule." The next 6 months were, without exaggeration, the hardest of Elena's life. Silas wasn't kidding about the basement. Her new office was a converted storage closet in the lower levels of the Etheria building, right next to the server room. It hummed constantly. It was hot. And every time she walked to the cafeteria, the whispers followed her. "That's her," the employees would say. "The one who almost sank the ship. The one who kicked out the billionaire." It was agonizing. Her ego died 1,000 deaths. But something else started to happen. As head of outreach, Elena couldn't hide in spreadsheets anymore. She had to meet the patients. She met a single mother named Maria whose daughter had the rare genetic condition Etheria was treating. Maria cried in Elena's arms, thanking her for the science, completely unaware that Elena had almost destroyed it. She met veterans. She met grandmothers. She heard stories of struggle and pain that made her own suffering over lost status feel ridiculously petty. She started wearing comfortable shoes. She stopped straightening her hair every morning. She started eating lunch in the break room with the lab assistants, listening to them talk about their student loans, their fears, their ideas. For the first time, she wasn't the CEO, she was just Elena. And she found out that she actually liked Elena a lot better this way. 1 year later. The Etheria Annual Gala. The Fairmont Hotel. The same lobby. The room was packed. The FDA approval had come through. The stock was soaring. Silas Thorne was there, standing near the bar. He wasn't wearing a tux. He was wearing a clean black button-down shirt and nice dark jeans, his version of formal wear. He was watching the room with that same calm, intense gaze. Elena walked in. She wasn't wearing the armor of a $6,000 suit this time. She was wearing a simple, elegant dress. She walked with a different kind of confidence, not the frantic, brittle confidence of someone trying to prove they belong, but the quiet groundedness of someone who knows who they are. She walked straight up to Silas. The room went quiet. People were watching. They remembered the story. They were waiting for the tension. "Silas," Elena said, extending her hand. Silas looked at her hand. Then he looked at her face. He smiled, a real, genuine smile that crinkled the corners of his eyes. He took her hand. His grip was warm and rough. "Elena," he nodded. "You look good. You look real." "I feel real," she said. "We hit the enrollment targets for the Phase 4 trials. We focused on underserved communities, just like we discussed. The data is incredible." "I saw the report," Silas said. "Marcus tells me you're the first one in the office and the last one to leave. And that you know the names of the cleaning staff." "Rosa and David," Elena smiled. "David's son just got into Berkeley." Silas chuckled. "So, the basement treated you well?" "It was the best thing that ever happened to me," Elena said, and she realized with a jolt that it was the truth. "You saved me, Silas. You didn't just save the company. You saved me from becoming a monster." "You were never a monster, Elena," Silas said softly. "You were just scared. And scared people do stupid things. I just gave you permission to stop being scared." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. Elena froze. "What is that?" "Relax, it's not a ring," Silas laughed. He opened it. Inside was a small, lapel pin. It was the Etheria logo, but in gold. "The board voted this morning. We want you back on the executive team. Chief Operating Officer. You earned it. The hard way." Elena stared at the pin. A year ago, she would have snatched it, desperate for the validation. Now, she hesitated. "I don't know," she said. "I like outreach. I like the work." "That's exactly why you need to be COO," Silas said, pinning it to her dress. "Because now you know who you're working for. Not the shareholders. The people." Elena looked around the room. She saw the glittering chandeliers, the expensive suits, the game being played. But she also saw the people behind the masks. She saw their insecurities, their hopes. She saw the world not as a hierarchy of boots versus heels, but as a messy, complicated web of humans just trying to survive. She looked back at Silas. "I'll take the job," she said. "But on one condition." "Yeah." Silas raised an eyebrow. "Next board meeting. We order pizza. And you leave the boots at the door. You're tracking mud on the carpet again." Silas looked down at his clean boots, then threw his head back and laughed, a loud, booming sound that filled the stuffy hotel lobby with life. Elena laughed with him. And for the first time in the history of Etheria Bio, the laughter wasn't a performance. It was just joy. But here's the kicker, guys. Here's the part that keeps me up at night. Elena got a redemption arc because Silas had the power to force it on her. He had the billions to make her listen. But what if he didn't? What if Silas really was just a contractor with a clipboard? Elena would have kicked him out, laughed about it, and gone on with her day. She would have stayed broken, and he would have just been another guy treated like dirt by the system. It makes you wonder, doesn't it? How many Alinas are running the world right now, judging us by our clothes, by our accents, by our zip codes? And how many Silas Thorns are out there, holding the keys to the future, but getting locked out because they don't fit the look? Next time you see someone who looks out of place, someone who doesn't fit the mold, ask yourself, are you seeing the person? Or are you just seeing your own bias staring back at you? I'm curious, if you were Silas, would you have given her a second chance? Or would you have let her burn? Drop a comment below. I really want to know where you draw the line between justice and mercy. Because honestly, I'm still not sure I would have been as kind as he was. Thanks for listening. Be good to each other. See you in the next one.